Imagine you're standing in your own kitchen. It's a Tuesday morning. Nothing special about it. You are holding a coffee mug, the one he bought you on your 3-month anniversary, the one with the little handwritten note still taped to the bottom. And you're realizing something. He hasn't looked at you in 4 days. Not a real look. Not the kind he used to give you. That slow, deliberate look that made you feel like you were the only person alive on the entire planet. That look is gone. And the worst part? You can't figure out what you did wrong. You are replaying every conversation, every meal, every morning, searching for the moment you broke something. But here's what no one told you. You didn't break anything. Because there was never anything real to break. She didn't lose the love of her life that Tuesday morning in Chicago. She lost the character he had been playing for exactly 183 days. So who was this man? And how did he disappear so completely, while still standing right in front of her? Stay with me. Because what happened to 29-year-old Maya is one of the clearest, most clinical cases of love bombing I have ever come across. And by the end of this, you'll know exactly how to spot it, before it rewires your brain. Let's go back to the beginning. Chicago. Late autumn. 2 years ago. Maya is 29. She has a good job, project coordinator at a mid-size marketing firm downtown. She has a small apartment in Logan Square, a rescue dog named Pinto, and a group of friends she's known since college. On paper, her life looks fine. But inside? She's exhausted. She had just ended a 4-year relationship 6 months earlier. Not dramatic. Not explosive. Just done. Two people who had grown in different directions and finally admitted it. The breakup was mutual. But mutual doesn't mean painless. Maya was lonely. Genuinely lonely. The kind of lonely that shows up at 11 p.m. when the apartment is quiet and you realize you haven't been chosen by anyone in a long time. She was also in therapy. Working through some old patterns, a tendency to put others first, difficulty setting boundaries, a deep fear of abandonment she traced back to her father leaving when she was 11. Her therapist called it anxious attachment. Maya called it just being a loving person. She was open, warm, emotionally available. And she was exactly what Daniel was looking for. Daniel, 34. Sales director at a tech startup. Handsome in that effortless, slightly too aware of it way. Confident. Charming. The kind of man who remembers your coffee order after one meeting and makes you feel like that's a normal thing to do. They met at a rooftop party in October. A mutual friend's birthday. He found her in a corner, talking to no one, watching the skyline. He said, "You look like you're solving something." She laughed. And that was it. Now, this is where I need you to pay close attention. Because what happened next didn't feel like a warning sign. It felt like a dream. Within the first week, Daniel texted her every morning. Not just, "Good morning." 4 messages. Thoughtful ones. Referencing something she said the night before. Asking follow-up questions about her childhood, her job, her fears. He listened like no one had ever listened to her before. By week 2, he had already called her his person. He told her he hadn't felt this way in years. Maybe ever. By week 3, he had surprised her at her office with her favorite lunch, from a restaurant across the city that she'd mentioned once, in passing. It felt romantic. Of course it did. But here's what love bombing actually is. It is not affection. It is not passion. It is a calculated flood of intensity, designed to do one very specific thing: bypass your critical thinking before your instincts kick in. Think of it like this. Your brain has a natural vetting process for new relationships. It takes time. It watches for consistency. It waits to see how someone behaves under pressure, in conflict, on a bad day. Love bombing short-circuits that process entirely. Because when someone is making you feel that chosen, that fast, your nervous system doesn't have time to ask questions. It's too busy feeling safe, feeling seen, feeling like it finally found the thing it was missing. And for Maya, who had spent 6 months feeling invisible, Daniel felt like oxygen. By month 2, he was talking about the future. Not vaguely, specifically. The neighborhood they'd live in. The trips they'd take. He even mentioned, gently, carefully, that he thought she might be the person he'd been waiting for. She told her therapist about him. Her therapist said, "That's moving very fast." Maya stopped going to therapy 2 months later. She told herself she didn't need it anymore. She was happy. She was finally happy. And that, right there, was the trap closing. By month 3, she had started seeing her friends less. Not because Daniel asked her to. He never asked directly. But somehow, his plans always aligned with their plans. And his disappointment when she chose friends over him was quiet, but unmistakable. She started choosing him. Every time. By month 4, he suggested they move in together. She had never moved in with anyone after 4 months. But Daniel wasn't just anyone. She knew that. He had shown her that, every single day, for 120 days straight. She said yes. And the moment the lease was signed, something shifted. It didn't happen overnight. That's the cruelest part. It happened in millimeters. The morning texts became shorter, then occasional. Then they stopped entirely, and he said he was just not a morning person, which confused Maya, because he had been a morning person for 4 months. The dinners became quieter. He was tired. Work was stressful. She understood. She gave him space. The compliments disappeared. The long conversations disappeared. The feeling of being seen, that specific, irreplaceable feeling, disappeared. And Maya did what anyone would do. She tried harder. She cooked the meals he liked. She gave him space when he seemed withdrawn. She stopped bringing up the things that bothered her because she didn't want to add to his stress. She was running on a loop, trying to find the version of him that had existed in the first 6 months. But that version was gone. Because that version had never been real. Here is the moment that broke everything open. 8 months in, a Saturday afternoon, Maya found, in the drawer of his desk, a notebook. Not a journal. A list. Her name at the top. And underneath it, her interests, her insecurities, her family history, her past relationship details, things she had told him in those early weeks, when he had listened so carefully. And next to each item, a note. A strategy. What to say. How to respond. How to make her feel understood. It was a script. A literal script. She stood there for a long time. And then she understood everything. The restaurant. The questions. I've never felt this way before. The future he had described in such careful detail. None of it had come from love. It had come from a playbook. She confronted him that evening. He didn't deny it. He didn't rage. He did something more unsettling. He was calm. Almost clinical. He said she was overreacting. That lots of people took notes. That he had done it because he cared about her. She looked at him and realized she had no idea who this person was. She had been in love with the performance. And the performer had already moved on. Let's talk about what actually happened here. Because this isn't just a bad relationship story. This is a documented psychological pattern. Love bombing. The term was first widely used by researchers studying cult recruitment tactics. Because that's where it comes from. The same strategies used to recruit and retain cult members are used, consciously or not, by certain personality types in romantic relationships. Dr. Dale Archer, writing in Psychology Today, describes love bombing as a relationship red flag, specifically because of its speed and its intent to create dependency before genuine trust has been established. The target is always someone emotionally available. Someone who has a history of putting others first. Someone with an unmet need for consistent love and validation. Maya fit that profile completely. Ross Rosenberg's work on what he calls the human magnet syndrome goes even further. He documents how people with narcissistic personality patterns are almost magnetically drawn to people with codependent tendencies, not randomly, but systematically. The narcissist's need for control and admiration fits perfectly, and temporarily, with the codependent's need to be needed and chosen. It feels like chemistry. It feels like fate. It is neither. Now, why didn't Maya see it earlier? Because her brain wouldn't let her. When you experience consistent love and affection, your brain releases dopamine and oxytocin, the same chemicals involved in addiction. By the time Maya moved in with Daniel, she wasn't just in love. She was neurologically bonded to him in a way that made objective thinking nearly impossible. This is why victims of love bombing often describe the aftermath as feeling like withdrawal. Like recovering from a substance. Because neurologically, it is. And here's the most painful part. Maya spent 2 years trying to get that first version of Daniel back. 2 years. Changing herself. Shrinking herself. Trying to figure out what she had done to make him change. She hadn't done anything. You cannot lose something that was never there. Maya left. Eventually. It took a conversation with her college roommate, someone she hadn't spoken to properly in over a year, to say out loud, "I think something is very wrong." She moved out in March. Back to Logan Square. A smaller apartment. Just her and Pinto. She went back to therapy. And the first thing her therapist said, when Maya described the notebook, the script, the list of her vulnerabilities carefully catalogued and leveraged, was, "I'm so sorry. And I want you to know, this is not your fault. You loved someone who knew exactly how to make you love them." Recovery was not linear. There were weeks she missed him, or missed the version of him that had felt so real. That's the most disorienting part of love bombing recovery. You are grieving someone who, in a meaningful sense, never existed. Psychologists call this ambiguous loss. Grieving something you can't fully name or explain. She also had to do the harder work, understanding why she had been vulnerable in the first place. Her anxious attachment, her history, her pattern of equating love with intensity. That work took time. Real time. But today, Maya says something that I think is important for anyone listening. She says, "I don't regret loving him. I regret not knowing what love bombing was. If I had known, I would have asked different questions much sooner." 3 things. Remember these. 1. Speed is not a sign of depth. When someone accelerates emotional intimacy dramatically fast, constant contact, future talk, declarations of love in the first weeks, your instinct might be to feel chosen. Feel lucky. Pause instead. Genuine love builds. It takes time to know someone. Anyone who is in love with you specifically, not the idea of you, not the potential of you, will be comfortable with a pace that allows real knowing. If someone is rushing you, ask yourself why. 2. Watch what disappears when the relationship feels secured. Love bombers don't sustain the behavior indefinitely. They can't. It's exhausting to perform. The tell is the contrast. If the affection, attention, and effort drop significantly after a milestone, moving in together, becoming exclusive, and engagement, that drop is data. Pay attention to it. Healthy relationships deepen over time. They don't peak at month 3 and decline. 3. Protect your support system. This is the most practical warning I can give you. If someone, even someone you love, is consistently pulling you away from your friends, your family, your therapist, whether through conflict, jealousy, or just the quiet weight of their disappointment, that is a structural warning sign. Your support system is your reality check. Isolating you from it is not accidental. It is how the trap becomes inescapable. Keep your people. No matter what. Maya's story is one of the clearest cases of love bombing I've covered. But there is a story that is, in some ways, even more disturbing. Because in Maya's case, she eventually found the notebook. She found proof. Something tangible that cracked the illusion open. But what happens when there is no notebook? What happens when someone is so precise, so careful, so systematic, that you never find evidence of anything? You just slowly stop trusting your own memory, your own perception, your own mind. Next week, we are covering gaslighting. And I don't mean the word thrown around casually online. I mean the clinical, documented, years-long psychological dismantling of a 34-year-old teacher in Ohio, who had journals, screenshots, and witnesses, and still spent 3 years believing she was the problem. She had proof. And he made her doubt it. If that makes you uncomfortable, good. It should. Subscribe so you don't miss it. It goes up next week. And before you go, I want to ask you something, and I genuinely want to hear your answer in the comments. Have you ever experienced a relationship that felt too good, too fast, and then changed completely once you were emotionally committed? What was the moment you first noticed the shift? You don't have to share details. Even just, yes, or I thought I was the only one. Because you're not. And knowing that matters. I'll see you next week.